The sky bled orange above Los Angeles as Malik Harris lowered his camera, his hands trembling. Through his telephoto lens, he'd captured more than just the devastating wildfire consuming the Santa Monica Mountains. He'd photographed something that made his chest tighten with dread. "This can't be right," he whispered, quickly reviewing the images on his camera's display. The smoke hadn't yet reached his neighborhood, but the acrid scent of burning chaparral drifted through the evening air, carrying with it the promise of devastation. The golden hour, usually Malik's favorite time for wildlife photography, had transformed into something sinister. Instead of illuminating the hawks and rabbits he typically photographed, the setting sun cast an apocalyptic glow over the rapidly spreading flames. But it was what he saw at the fire's origin point that made his blood run cold. A man in an expensive-looking suit, bizarrely out of place in the rugged terrain, hurriedly stuffing what appeared to be a metal container into the trunk of a black SUV. The vehicle's tinted windows and lack of license plates set off every alarm bell in Malik's 17 years of street-smart instincts. The distant wail of sirens pulled his attention back to the inferno. The fire had already devoured acres of protected wildlife habitat, its hunger unsated as it crept toward the expensive homes dotting the hillside. Malik's father, a veteran firefighter with the LAFD, would be on the front lines soon if he wasn't already. His phone buzzed, a text from his best friend Marcus. "Yo, you seeing this? They're evacuating Hidden Hills. This fire's no joke." Malik's fingers hovered over his phone's keyboard. Should he tell Marcus what he'd seen? The photos felt like a weight in his camera, a dangerous secret he hadn't meant to discover. The man's face had been clearly visible in several shots, sharp features, cold eyes, and an expression that spoke of purpose rather than panic. Another explosion rocked the hillside as a propane tank detonated, sending a mushroom cloud of flame into the darkening sky. The fire's roar grew louder, a hungry beast devouring everything in its path. Somewhere in that inferno, endangered species fought for survival. The very creatures Malik had spent countless hours photographing and documenting for his college applications. His mother's voice carried from inside their modest home. "Malik, get in here, baby. They're saying the wind's shifting." He took one last look at the horizon, where the mysterious SUV had disappeared into the gathering darkness. The weight of his camera felt different now, no longer just a tool for his passion, but evidence of something much darker. As Malik turned to head inside, a massive red-tailed hawk burst from the smoke, its powerful wings carrying it to safety. But unlike the hawk, Malik couldn't just fly away from what he'd witnessed. The truth had its talons in him now, and somehow he knew his life would never be the same. "Coming, Mom," he called back, slipping his camera into his bag. But his mind was already racing, calculating the risks and consequences of what he had to do next. Because if someone had deliberately set this fire, if his photos really showed what he thought they did, then staying silent wasn't an option. The question was, how do you fight an enemy powerful enough to set Los Angeles on fire? Malik's bedroom felt like a war room. His laptop screen illuminated the darkness as he transferred the photos from his camera, each image more damning than the last. The fire's orange glow through his window had intensified, casting dancing shadows across his walls. "Match found," flashed across his screen. The facial recognition software he'd borrowed from his school's journalism club had identified the mysterious man, Victor Blackwood, Executive Vice President of Westland Development Corporation. Their slogan, "Building Tomorrow's California," gleamed on their website, right next to promises of sustainable development and environmental stewardship. A notification lit up his phone. The evacuation zone had expanded. 3 neighborhoods gone, thousands displaced, and the fire showed no signs of slowing. His father hadn't answered his texts in 2 hours. "This is bigger than me," Malik muttered, scrolling through Westland's recent press releases. Their latest project, a luxury housing development, had been blocked by environmental regulations, protecting the exact area where the fire started. The same habitat where he'd photographed endangered California condors just last week. A sharp knock at his door made him jump. "Baby, you need to pack a go-bag," his mother's voice carried through the wood. "Just in case." "Already done, Mom," he called back, minimizing his browser windows. He wasn't ready to share his suspicions, not even with her. Not yet. His phone buzzed again, Marcus this time, with a voice message. Yo, check your email, that fire? 2 more just started in Ventura County. Same pattern, same time. This ain't natural, bro. Malik's hands shook as he opened his email. Marcus had sent links to traffic camera footage showing similar black SUVs near both new fire sites. His friend worked weekends at the Department of Transportation's IT help desk. Access to traffic cams was just one of his unofficial privileges. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture too terrible to ignore. Westland had proposed developments in Ventura County too, all blocked by environmental protections. Now those protected areas were burning. A new email popped up from an anonymous address. The subject line made his heart stop. We saw you taking pictures. Before he could open it, his phone lit up with an incoming call. Unknown number. His finger hovered over the screen as his mind raced. Answer it? Ignore it? Every choice felt like it could be the wrong one. Then his computer screen flickered, went black, and came back on with a message. Delete the photos. Forget what you saw, or your father's next fire call might be his last. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. They knew who he was. They knew about his dad. But they didn't know one thing. Malik had already uploaded the photos to 3 separate cloud accounts. His hands steadied as he reached for his phone. Not to answer the anonymous call, but to dial a different number. Aisha Reynolds, the environmental journalist who'd covered his wildlife photography in the school paper last semester. She had connections at the Los Angeles Times. The question wasn't whether to fight back anymore. The question was, how many more fires would they start before he could stop them? Through his window, a team of firefighters rushed past, their truck's sirens wailing into the night. Somewhere out there, his father was facing the flames, but the real danger wasn't the fire, it was the people who started it. Malik took a deep breath and hit dial. Ms. Reynolds, I have a story you need to hear, but we have to move fast. The fire's roar seemed to grow louder, as if nature itself was demanding justice. And Malik Harris, armed with nothing but a camera and the truth, was about to give it to them. The Los Angeles Times building loomed before Malik like a fortress in the pre-dawn darkness. Security cameras tracked his movement as he approached the entrance, his backpack heavy with evidence. Aisha Reynolds waited in the lobby, her press badge gleaming under fluorescent lights. You shouldn't have come alone, she said, ushering him toward the elevators. Her dark eyes scanned the empty lobby. If what you told me on the phone is true, it's worse than what I said on the phone. Malik pulled out his laptop as the elevator climbed. 3 more fires started in the last hour, all near blocked Westland development sites. The newsroom buzzed with controlled chaos despite the early hour. Screens displayed live coverage of the fires, now forming a ring around Los Angeles. The air quality map showed angry red zones spreading across Southern California. Carlos, Isha called to a senior reporter. Remember that piece you were working on about Westland's campaign contributions? Carlos wheeled his chair over, coffee sloshing in his mug. His eyes widened as Malik pulled up the photos. Dear God, he whispered. We've been investigating them for months, but this... Malik's phone vibrated, another anonymous text. Last warning, stand down. A breaking news alert flashed across the newsroom screens. Malik's heart stopped. Firefighter critically injured in Santa Monica Mountains blaze. Dad, he breathed, fumbling for his phone. His mother answered on the first ring, her voice tight with control. He's alive, she said before he could speak. Burns and smoke inhalation. They're taking him to UCLA Medical. The newsroom spun around him. Isha grabbed his arm, steadying him. This isn't a coincidence, she said quietly. They're sending a message. Then let's send one back. Malik's voice hardened as he pulled up the cloud drive containing his evidence. How fast can you fact-check and publish? Carlos was already making calls, his voice urgent. Judge Martinez, we need an emergency injunction against Westland development. Yes, I know what time it is. Trust me, you want to see this. Aisha's team gathered around her computer, verifying Malik's traffic camera footage. The SUVs match company vehicles registered to Westland subsidiaries, an intern announced. Same make, same model, all purchased last month. A loud crash made everyone jump. Marcus burst through the stairwell door, laptop under his arm, security guards on his heels. Let him through, Malik shouted. He's with me. Bro, Marcus panted, you need to see this. Been scanning radio frequencies around the new fire sites. He pulled up a spectrogram analysis. Same pattern at every location. Electronic signal burst right before ignition. Remote detonators, Carlos breathed. They're triggering these fires from a distance. Malik's phone lit up again. His mother. Baby, there's men outside our house. Black SUVs. The newsroom fell silent. On the screens above, the ring of fire around Los Angeles tightened like a noose. Malik looked at the evidence spread across the computers around him, then at the faces waiting for his decision. His father had taught him that courage wasn't about being fearless, it was about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. Print it, he told Aisha. Print it all. She nodded, fingers flying across her keyboard. Carlos, call the FBI. Marcus, get that signal data to every fire department in the county. If they try to start more fires, we'll catch them in the act. Mrs. Harris, Carlos spoke into his phone. There's a safe house in Pasadena. I'm sending a reporter to pick you up. Now. Dawn broke over Los Angeles, the sun rising blood red through the smoke. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Malik felt something else rising too. Hope. They thought they could bury the truth in ashes, he said, watching the story upload to the Times website. Let's see how they handle the heat. Outside, sirens wailed across the city. The fires still burned, but now the world would know why. And somewhere in a corporate boardroom, Victor Blackwood was about to learn that he'd underestimated the wrong 17-year-old. The truth was catching fire, and this time they couldn't put it out. The Los Angeles Times headline blazed across social media, "Corporate Arson, the truth behind California's worst wildfires." Within hours, Westland's stock plunged 40%. Malik watched from the safe house in Pasadena as chaos erupted. His mother paced behind him, phone pressed to her ear, coordinating with his father's doctors. The burns weren't as severe as initially feared, but the smoke inhalation had left him in critical condition. They're calling for your source, Isha said, her voice crackling through his encrypted phone. Westland's lawyers are demanding to know who leaked the photos. Through the safe house window, Malik could see the fires still burning in the distance. The latest report counted 7 separate blazes, all strategically placed around potential development sites. But something about the pattern nagged at him. Marcus, he called to his friend, who hadn't left his side since the newsroom. Pull up Westland's property records again. Marcus's fingers flew across his laptop keyboard. What are we looking for? Not what, who. Malik remembered something from his research. Check the shell companies. Who owned the land before Westland? The answer made his blood freeze. California Conservation Trust, Marcus read. Founded by Sarah Blackwood, Victor's sister. Malik's mother stopped pacing. Sarah Blackwood, the environmental activist? A news alert popped up on their phones. Sarah Blackwood found dead in Malibu home. Apparent suicide. No, Malik whispered. No way this is a coincidence. His laptop chimed. An encrypted email from an unknown sender. The subject line, Sarah's insurance policy. With trembling fingers, he opened the attachment. Video footage played, showing Sarah Blackwood in her office, looking directly into the camera. If you're seeing this, she began, I'm already dead. What my brother is doing, it's bigger than just real estate. The fires are phase 1. Once the land is cleared, they're building something else. Something worse. I've hidden the proof in the one place Victor would never look. The video cut off. But in the final frame, Sarah's hand rested on a familiar object. A wildlife photography book. The same book sitting on Malik's desk at home. His heart raced. The condor nesting sites. That's where she hid it. Those cliffs are in the middle of the fire zone, Marcus protested. It's suicide. So is doing nothing. Malik grabbed his camera bag. Those nests are the only part of the habitat the fire hasn't reached, because the updrafts from the canyons protect them. His mother stepped in front of the door. Malik Harris, don't you dare. Mom, he took her hands. Dad always says a firefighter's job isn't just putting out fires. It's protecting what matters most. This is bigger than us now. Tears filled her eyes, but she straightened her spine. You come back to me, you hear? Marcus was already grabbing his gear. I know a Forest Service ranger who owes me a favor. She can get us past the roadblocks. Malik's phone buzzed one last time. A message from Victor Blackwood himself. You should have taken the warning, boy. Now you'll burn with the rest. But Malik wasn't that scared teenager on his back porch anymore. He was his father's son, his mother's courage, Sarah Blackwood's last hope, and Los Angeles' only chance at learning the truth. "Let them try to stop us," he said, stepping into the smoke-filled dawn. "Some things are worth burning for." Behind him, the safe house door clicked shut. Ahead, through the haze, the Condor Cliffs waited. And somewhere in those ancient nests, Sarah Blackwood's final secret lay hidden. A truth so dangerous, her own brother had killed to keep it buried. The race wasn't just against the fires now. It was against time, against corporate power, and against the darkness in men's hearts that would burn the world for profit. Malik adjusted his camera strap, the weight familiar and comforting. He'd started this journey capturing images of wildlife. Now he was about to capture something far more endangered: the truth. The Forest Service truck bounced along the fire access road, ash swirling in its wake. Ranger Elena Torres gripped the wheel, her knuckles white as she navigated between burning trees. "Last chance to turn back," she shouted over the fire's roar. "Those updrafts that protect the nests, they're also why no one fights fires up there. It's too unpredictable." Marcus clutched his laptop in the back seat, tracking the fire's movement on satellite imagery. "We've got maybe 30 minutes before the main blaze reaches the cliffs." Malik studied his father's old fire survival manual, memorizing escape routes. The weight of his fire-resistant gear, borrowed from Elena's station, felt like armor. The truck skidded to a stop at the trail base. Ahead, the narrow path switchbacked up the cliff face. Through the smoke, dark shapes wheeled against the sky, the condors still circling their nesting grounds. "5 pairs left," Elena said, checking her rifle loaded with tranquilizer darts. "The last California condors nesting in these mountains. If the fire reaches them—" "It won't," Malik promised, though his voice shook. He pulled out his phone, checking the video frame one last time. Sarah Blackwood's book had been Volume 3 of California's Hidden Wilderness, the same series that had inspired his photography. The climb was brutal. Smoke burned their eyes despite the protective goggles. Twice, they had to backtrack as burning branches crashed across their path. The heat grew more intense with each step. "Wait," Marcus called, pointing at his screen. "That signal pattern from the fire starters? It's active again. Close." Elena raised her rifle, scanning the cliffs above. "We're not alone up here." A rock clattered down the path behind them. Malik spun, camera raised, and captured a glimpse of a black tactical suit disappearing behind a boulder. "Run!" Elena shoved them forward as bullets sparked off the rocks around them. "The nest caves. Only way up is single file. They can't flank us." They sprinted up the narrowing trail, lungs burning from smoke and exertion. The caves appeared ahead, dark mouths in the cliff face where generations of condors had raised their young. A massive bird swooped overhead, its wingspan casting a shadow through the smoke. The condors were returning to defend their nests. Inside the largest cave, Malik's flashlight beam danced across ancient rock walls. Condor feathers littered the floor, and there, wedged into a crack, a metal case. "Cover me," he told Elena, scrambling toward it. Marcus's laptop beeped urgently. "Multiple signal sources converging. They're herding the fire toward us." Malik's fingers closed around the case, just as another burst of gunfire echoed outside. Elena returned fire with tranquilizer darts, forcing their attackers to cover. "Got it." Malik pulled the case free. A familiar voice rang out from the cave mouth. "Well done, Mr. Harris." Victor Blackwood stepped into view, silhouetted against the burning sky. More armed figures appeared behind him. "My sister always was theatrical," he said, brushing ash from his suit sleeve. "Hiding evidence in a condor nest? Poetic, but ultimately futile." "Like killing her?" Malik's voice cracked with fury. "Sarah chose her fate when she threatened our work." Blackwood's smile was colder than the fires were hot. "The world's changing, boy. These lands, these creatures, they're relics. The future belongs to those bold enough to build it." "You mean the weapons facility?" Malik watched Blackwood's smile fade. "That's what Sarah discovered, isn't it? These fires, the developments, they're just cover for something worse." The case clicked open in his hands. Inside lay a hard drive and a single condor feather. Blackwood raised a gun. "The drive, now." "No." Malik stood straighter, his father's courage flowing through him. "The world deserves to know the truth." A condor's cry pierced the smoke. The great birds were circling closer, agitated by the flames and intruders. "The truth," Blackwood laughed. "The truth is you're trapped. The fire's coming and no one knows you're here. In an hour, there'll be nothing left but ashes." Malik's hand tightened on his camera. "That's where you're wrong." Because what Victor Blackwood didn't know was that Marcus's laptop had been broadcasting every word, every revelation, straight to the Los Angeles Times live feed. The world wasn't just watching the fires anymore. It was watching justice catch fire. The cave erupted into chaos as Blackwood realized he'd been broadcast live. His composed facade cracked, revealing the rage beneath. Kill them all, but nature had other plans. The condors dove as one, massive wings cutting through smoke, their primordial screams echoing off the cliffs. Blackwood's men scattered, ducking the massive birds' razor-sharp talons. "The drive!" Malik tossed it to Marcus as Alina laid down, covering fire with her tranquilizer rifle. "Get it to the truck!" "Not without you!" Marcus caught the drive, but stood his ground. The fires were closing in, turning the sky into a crimson dome. Through the heat haze, Malik saw movement on the ridge above, helicopters. Not news choppers, but heavily armed tactical units. "FBI, drop your weapons!" Blackwood's laugh turned maniacal. "You think I didn't plan for this?" He pulled out a remote detonator. "These cliffs are rigged to blow. One press and your precious evidence, your condors, everything goes up in smoke." Malik raised his camera. Click. The sound was small against the fire's roar, but it made Blackwood turn. "What are you doing?" "Getting your confession in frame." Malik's voice was steady now. "See, those live feeds aren't just going to the Times. They're going to every major news outlet, every law enforcement agency, and every environmental protection group in the country." More helicopters appeared through the smoke. The FBI rappelled down on lines, weapons trained on Blackwood's men. "Your sister knew," Malik continued, stepping forward. "She knew you weren't just planning weapons facilities. You were building autonomous drone bases, hidden under the cover of luxury developments, sites that could launch attacks anywhere in the country." Blackwood's finger tightened on the detonator. "You understand nothing. The future belongs to those who control the sky." "No," Malik said quietly. "The sky belongs to them." He pointed up, where the condors still circled, ancient guardians of their burning realm. A tranquilizer dart caught Blackwood in the shoulder, Elena's perfect shot. The detonator fell from his grasp. Malik dove, catching it before it hit the rocks. "Clear the caves." The FBI teams moved in, securing Blackwood and his men. "We've got choppers standing by for emergency evac." But Malik wasn't done. He turned to the nearest camera lens he knew was broadcasting. To everyone watching, the fires weren't natural disasters. They were weapons, used by the powerful to destroy what they couldn't control. But they forgot something. He walked to the cave's edge, where the condors landed one by one, their wings stirring the smoke. Nature doesn't bow to money, truth doesn't burn, and sometimes the smallest actions spark the biggest changes. The first raindrops fell, cutting through the smoke. The storm that had been building for days finally broke, nature's answer to man's destruction. Hours later, in the UCLA Medical Center, Malik sat beside his father's bed, watching the news coverage. Blackwood and his entire network were in custody. The fires were dying under the relentless rain, and on every channel the image played, a black teenager standing among California condors, proving that courage knows no age and justice knows no bounds. His father squeezed his hand weakly. "Proud of you, son." Malik's phone buzzed with messages from around the world. Environmental groups, student activists, and countless others inspired by what he'd done. But the message that mattered most was the one from Marcus, who'd already started a wildlife protection nonprofit with the reward money, ready to change the world. Malik looked out the hospital window. The rain had cleared the sky, and high above, a condor soared, free and untouchable. "Always," he texted back. Because some fires destroy, but others illuminate the truth, and from their ashes, heroes rise. 1 year later. The Santa Monica Mountains stretched before Malik, reborn from the ashes. Fresh chaparral covered the slopes where fires had raged, nature's resilience on full display. Through his camera lens, he focused on a familiar sight, a pair of California condors soaring overhead. "Got it," he grinned, checking the shot. The population had doubled since last year, thanks to the expanded protection programs funded by Westland's seized assets. "Mr. Harris?" A young voice called from behind. "Can you sign my photography book?" Malik turned to face the group of high school students gathered for his wildlife photography workshop. The book in the girl's hands was his own, Rising from Ashes: How Nature Fights Back, now required reading in environmental science classes across the country. "What's your name?" he asked, uncapping his pen. "Rosa," she answered. "I want to do what you did, use art to protect what matters." Malik smiled, signing the book. The camera's just a tool. The real power is in the truth it reveals. His phone buzzed, a message from Marcus with a link to their nonprofit's latest victory. Another corporate development had been stopped, another wildlife habitat saved. The movement they'd started had spread across the globe, inspiring a new generation of environmental defenders. "Incoming!" Elena's voice carried across the ridge. She was still their favorite ranger, now heading the Enhanced Wildlife Protection Unit. A condor landed nearby, its tagged wing catching the sunlight. This was Sarah Blackwood's legacy, too. Her evidence had not only exposed the weapons program, but had led to groundbreaking conservation laws. Malik's father, fully recovered and recently promoted to fire chief, had helped draft new firefighting protocols that prioritized ecosystem protection alongside human safety. The Harris family dinner table had become a weekly gathering of activists, journalists, and changemakers, his mother's cooking fueling their ongoing fight for justice. Aisha's Pulitzer nomination for Breaking the Westland story hung framed in the Times newsroom, next to Malik's first published photograph. Victor Blackwood's trial had ended with a life sentence. His empire dismantled, his stolen lands returned to native conservation trusts. But the real victory was in the small things. The sound of birds returning to restored habitats, the sight of new growth pushing through scorched earth, the knowledge that one person's courage could ignite a movement. "Ready for the advanced class?" Malik asked his students, leading them along the ridge trail. "Today we're learning about night photography. The stars tell stories too." As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of hope, Malik Harris raised his camera one more time. Through his lens, he captured not just light and shadow, but the promise of tomorrow, a world where truth prevails, nature thrives, and young heroes rise when duty calls. Because some fires destroy, but others illuminate the path forward, and in their light, we find our way home.